Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Moxtober Daily Recap. If you don't know what Moxtober is, it's an annual event where for each day of the month of October, there's a different one word prompt, and based on that prompt, people perform various creative endeavors related to the game of Magic the Gathering. Most people design custom cards, which is what we look over in these recaps, but people also draw art, make deck lists, and write stories. Basically, anything creative related to the game of Magic the Gathering. Today's prompt is Puppet. And as always, if you want to find all of the designer credit for the designs we talk about today, as well as the full files we pulled the samples from, and instructions on how you can submit your own cards to get into these files to potentially be selected for future recaps, you can find all of that in the description. But yeah, with that being said, let's get into our first card for the day. Um, so mine is going to be a pretty simple one. In MTG.design, it's going to be Illusory Reins. So let's grab that. And I liked this one because it feels like it it's basically just mind control, except you mitigate what I feel like is the most damaging part of mind control effects, um, in that you naturally have to like two for one yourself. Like you can use if they steal your bomb, you can use removal on your creature, but then it's like, damn, they didn't just one for one my creature; they two for one me by forcing me to kill my own bomb. Here, um, you can essentially like target the enchanted creature with some like non-removal spell, like a pump spell, or like you can just like uh, you can target the illusory reins if you have something. But basically, it gives you a lot more counterplay uh, to the traditional like, oh man, I have to kill my own thing now that they've stolen it, because it turns like every combat trick into your deck into destroy illusory reins. If you have like tap target creature gets +1/+1 activate only as a sorcery, that also gets you, so it adds a lot of like granularity to your environment where this card can be very powerful but also have a lot of incidental reasonable counterplay. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with your analysis here of promoting some very fun gameplay, allowing, say, you're a red deck, you don't have enchantment destruction, so it's really cool to point your shock at your big ol' ogre that you lost. I think that's cool for more dynamic interactions. On the flavor of this executed mechanically, there's something subtle going on here that I'm a big fan of. So it's got the illusion effect that you see on illusion creatures. You target it, it goes away, but it also grants it to the aura itself, which is a departure from another previous aura that is also an illusion flavor, illusionary armor, which only allows you to target the enchanted creature to make the armor go away. And that makes sense because the person being tricked or the subjects being tricked is you. You're supposed to be seeing this big armor thing, and if you dared to try to interact with the supposed armored creature, then you find out it's just an illusion. But in this case, it's the other way around. The enchanted creature is actually the one who is seeing illusions themselves. So it's on you to actually maybe dispel the enchantment, the magic that they're being tricked by. So you can actually see that someone else is pulling the strings, and it's really cool that you can target that aura because of that flavor.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. I didn't like I never I usually like don't think about flavor things from the perspective as like the player as a function of something in the world, but that's something that like, so yeah, like I'm glad you gave that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, overall I think this is just, it's a real simple change to uh like to like an existing card that makes its play pattern so much better. So I appreciate that. So shout out to GoMate for this design. And with that, Bradley, what is your first design for the day?
All right, let's go to the MSE file. Let's talk about Mikhail, Chief D- Directorate. Okay, so Mikhail here represents some more of the bureaucracy or government powers type of control, not magical but very real. Um, introduces manipulate as a thing, and I think that's very interesting to be able to have the white effect of being able to choose attacks and blocks sometimes, like with Audric. But in this case, it's doing the marrying it with blue's ability to just control a creature completely, and instead you just get to choose decisions for a lot of different aspects of the creature, like a true puppet, while still leaving it under someone else's control. So which is what puppets do, right? Yeah, so I think it's maybe I don't know if it's an interesting space to explore further.
Yeah, I guess the question is, yeah, it feels like if you're attacking and blocking, I feel like are you attacking and blocking with them during your declare attacker step, or during you get to declare attacks with them during their turn? I feel like there's a little bit of ambiguity there. Um, how does like activating abilities work if like if you can activate? So can they no longer activate abilities, or is it just so? Because I'm just
Mm.
like
I think yeah,
I feel like
you
this is
bring a
something
good
that's
point.
like relatively simple to read, but I could just be like missing something. But I feel like in play, there's definitely some like things. So I feel like this would be one of those things where like the reminder text is like a good paraphrasing here, but you would need like more rules clarification if you're gonna like for in like the CR or addition for whatever the mechanic is, just to make it clear.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's probably why they say things like opposition agent says like you control players while searching, and then like how like the other player should be able to do make decisions at this, and how do you make decisions at the same time of the other player when you attack them? They're like, I choose to block with these, then is it your turn after, or do you go before them? Yeah, I think you're right. It is complex to handle.
But yeah, I like the overall idea of like I, for all intents and purposes, control this creature, even though it is still, by game rules, under your control. There's definitely something compelling about that in flavor, and also like um, I feel like this is a type of thing which, like, again, legendary creature, 3 colors, definitely for commander. There's definitely like that sense of brewing of like, oh, nothing else can do this. Let me try to find out, and this space hasn't been explored before. What can I do by controlling my opponent's permanence um, that I wouldn't be that like, but not changing the control that is like actually actively interesting slash unique. So I definitely appreciate it for that.
Mm. I'm glad it's on a legendary creature to help maybe point towards like, hey, maybe this is actually more interesting in a commander setting, for why you wouldn't just gain control of it straight up. Maybe there's something else there when there's other opponents involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one of the things where like I wish there was a way to like I'm maybe not this, but like a variation is like I think it would be interesting to be like when Mikhail enters the battlefield for each opponent, secretly choose a creature that controls. At the beginning of their upkeep, you may reveal the creature chosen this way. Until end of turn. You may like blah blah blah.
Mm.
You choose how that creature attacks and blocks and activates abilities, etc. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Here's the I think that that could be a clean way to doing it than this. If we go with the manipulate here, I just realized, yeah, one benefit of the multiplayer setting is that you can't block with puppeted or manipulated creatures when another opponent attacks you with something else. They attack you with a big worm coil engine. You can't any manipulated creatures you can't block with as if you did a mind control. Hmm. Okay, a very narrow space, but yeah, cool.
yeah, it's like technically kind of goading it essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think this is a great shout out for Puppet. So thanks to RomanExperience for this design. Next up, let's see. I like Grip of the Necromancer in the MSE file, and I feel like if mono white border was here, he'd like it too. So it's 1 and a black for enchantment aura, enchant creature. Essentially, if enchant creature would die, you essentially flicker it, and then it becomes a black skeleton with the classic regenerate ability. Um, so like a variant on a very common like there's a bunch of like combat tricks where it's like, hey, if this creature would die this turn, bring it back. This makes it sorcery speed, so you can actually like predict it, or not predict it, but like you have like some advance warning, but in exchange you get the repeated regenerates. Not sure if the costing on the regenerate is a little cheap or obnoxious, but other than that, I think the knobs on this are pretty cool, and I love the idea of like permanently turning a creature into something else it, with like an iconic ability. Like, can you imagine like stuff like form of, but for creatures, like something that's like on dragon's wings and uh enchanted creature has fire breathing, or like if it, I guess like the main thing that's compelling about this is like it has like that like thing of like if it would die. I would love if like you could like enchant egg, and if enchanted egg would die, exile it, return to the battlefield, and it loses defender and gains blah blah. That's like super narrow, but like I guess I'm more like riffing on like the flavor concept, and I'm not sure like exactly where like it would end up playability wise for other designs. But yeah, they basically what I'm saying is I like the idea, as I've already mentioned, of like flavorfully changing creatures into different types and giving them cool mechanical stuff to represent it. So yeah, shout out to Oppo for this design. APO.
Yeah. Um, Comparable card, which I get has a very puppety art. Minions return normally costs that one costs 3 in Flash, and Flash is a lot more likely to for you to actually control the creature, right? Because you can do it right before they die in a trade. This one is cheaper for 2. It's more of a challenge to try to get them to die, but that at least also you get a reward for actually making them die as well. So I think it's a really cool balance to, and it's natural too. You're like, oh, okay, what's my reward? It wasn't just, oh, you just gain like some life or that you drain or whatever. It makes sense. You rip the skeleton out of the body and you're using it now.
Okay, Bradley, what is your next card gonna be?
All right, let's go to mtg.design. Prison of Strings or String. Okay. All right. So we've got like a ghostly prison effect of taxing, but red also has the effects of encouraging quote unquote creatures to attack. And in this case, it's like a goading sort of thing combined with the taxing. I like that there's like um, the additions of strings over time. Puppets classically maybe have like the 4 string thing, but it's cool that like the more they decide to hit you, the harder and harder it is to keep that up because they have to keep paying mana to try to get to you. And representing that with strings, as in you control them even more and more, is kind of a cool flavor tie-in with that. Um, yeah,
Yeah, this is a wild like combination of effects, like the goading effect plus the tax. Like it's effects that I would not think would work together, but this is like hilarious because it's basically like, yeah, play all your spells main one, because otherwise all of your mana is going to be taxed, or like, or like, yeah, it's because of like having to attack. It like forces you to, if you want to play spells at all, uh, you are gonna have to. You're like going to be priced into playing the main one, unless you like eventually, because otherwise all of your mana is going to get tapped out during combat. Um, at least I assume that's the intent, right? Where it's like essentially forcing you to attack and then taxing you for that tax, so effectively just taxing you overall, which is like a really cool effect. I'm not sure if like it's exactly works as worded, and I'm just going to assume that it does. And yeah, I like the idea of like over time, like they get like one free, like as long as they haven't attacked yet, they can just hold themselves back. But as soon as they start attacking, well, that one string is on them and they just get wrapped up more and more.
Yeah, yeah, it's like in a multiplayer setting. Once again, uh, yeah, the white and red are really good along with black at doing vengeance style of stuff. So, if you don't, as long as you don't touch me, you don't get any strings on you. But as soon as you touch me once, then you are punished. Now you have to always attack, and it always has to be someone else, unless it's like that's the semi goad, right? Is Well, you could pay a tax now for a string, and if you hit me again, okay, fine. You get to keep paying even more. I like that. uh like you don't even have to interact with this. You have the choice. You can redirect someone else's creature because they want to not have to attack with it every turn.
Yeah, there's like a surprising amount of play to what I would assume is is an effect that like I just would not have thought of before. Just because I'm like,
Mm.
these two effects, why would they go together? And it's like, yeah, they go together because they work out great. Um, but yeah, okay. So for my next design, let's go to Cursed Doll in the mtg.design file. Um, and this is a fairly simple one. Oh wait, no, is it not? It looks like a Cursed Doll. The person didn't put the art credit. Big sad. So we're gonna go to Cursive Puppet Strings instead. Um,
Mm.
it's 6 black black. Cursive Puppet Strings enters the battlefield with 4 string counters on it. As long as it is an enchanted player's turn, you control that player. Whenever an enchanted player takes damage, remove that many string counters from Cursive Puppet Strings, and then if it has no string counters on it, exile Cursive Puppet Strings. I think that like with that last downside, you could definitely like cheapen this a lot, especially since you don't control them on their own turn. So like the most damaging things, which are usually like forcing them to attack or like making them cast spells uselessly, like lots of stuff that makes Mindslaver like really dangerous, you can't, and like they can also just like tap out all of their mana, so you can't even cast instants. So
Mm.
like I think that this like both I think it almost like doesn't need the downside and could use a cost reduction, but the general idea of like we've been like lots of these are like manipulation effects are like just uniquely suited to multiplayer. um I like, yeah, I love the idea of just like I guess you won't block any of this damage, and they're like, I guess I won't block any of this, I guess. So wow, they I've made that choice. And it's like, hey, will you help me with this assist spell? I guess I'll help you with that assist spell. Like, just like the I think that like there's definitely like again tapping out your mana or just like full swinging at someone so it doesn't matter. Like there's lots of ways for the player to mitigate the actions that are being taken, but it also is just like there's a lot of like little political things you can do. So yeah, I think that it's a uh, obviously like Mindslaver is like a controversial effect, but I think that uh, the way this works, it's a splashy, powerful card, but with reasonable downsides that change the play pattern into something dynamic.
Yeah, I think I agree. Yeah, I agree with you with that. Like, maybe it's too a lot of restriction with mana cost. Maybe most of all, if the vision is to make sure to keep the rest of it there. But I do appreciate maybe they're like, hey, we take controlling seriously, but we went a bit overboard and very precautious with it. The thing I'm most excited by here, well, two things. One is picking curse to marry with puppet prompt. I think that's a great direction. And then the as long as it's not their turn, I'm like, whoa, okay, that's kind of fresh for usually when I see black effects. Usually it's just straight up their turn, you gain control of it. This one's kind of a different direction. That's kind of cool. If we can iterate from here, that's cool for other kind of cards maybe as well. Yeah, I like to imagine also, let's see. So the main thing is I can force them to block with any untapped creatures they have. And if they ensured that their creatures were tapped to not be able to block with during other again, if it was a commander, right? You commander, what do you call it? Game. You can, if anyone else attacks your puppet, then you can be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna block with all your creatures. But if they decide to tap their creatures, that means maybe they were forced to attack to avoid blocking with, which is also another kind of maybe benefit to your end, maybe. But yeah, great work on the not their turn. Like I would love to see that stick.
So yeah, shout out to YellowPie for this design. And next up, what is your next design going to be?
Okay, let's do beneath my strings in the MSE file. Oh, fitting. Speaking of not your turn, this is also one that only works during your turn. Um, which okay, so we've seen two different kinds of controls most of the time here in Magic and Canon Magic effects. Either you gain control of it permanently, blue style, or you gain control of it for a turn, red style. And in this case, this one introduces like, what if you control it semi permanently? You control it at all other turns that is not theirs, and I think that's a cool thing to do. I noticed that you could do two blue blue and it gains haste as well, which I think is maybe just make that into a two blue red instead. That might be because blue with haste that doesn't I don't think that jives with the color pie, but yeah, but the two blue red makes it a good cost for usually mind control nowadays is three blue blue, so two blue red could be a cool balance.
Yeah, and I think one more thing is the hybrid mana makes it like less interesting here because usually, um, with hybrid it's like blue and then black and red. So it's like, oh, okay, I can play this in like two different multicolored decks and there's like more flexibility there. Here it's like, why would I ever play two blue red unless my mana base is really bad? I would just play this in like I can I and like it basically just makes it so that if you're playing, you can just play this in blue, and then the red is kind of just there as just desserts, which I think is like a less interesting use of hybrid mana. I do agree though that I overall like this design. It was also on my list. Yeah, it's just like, and I like the first card I showed off, the forgetting the name right now, but the card designed by GoMate. Um, it's just like a really clean and fun variant on mind control, which is I think for lots of people just like the iconic effect for today's prompt. And lots of people are like, okay, so we don't see mind control anymore. Can we make that's because of the play pattern? Can we make the play pattern a little more kosher? And so I think this is a good way of like doing that.
Great point.
Yeah, okay. So my next design is going to be from the MSC file, and it's going to be uh, Mospant Death Dealer. Okay, getting over there. Or Mospant Death Dealer. Oh, also, and the last card was designed by Calypso, otherwise known as Nemeia Starag. So, but yeah, getting into Mospant Death Dealer, designed by MBTRee. Um, 3 black red, 3/4 flying haste. And at the beginning of your turn, or the beginning of combat on your turn, an opponent chooses one that hasn't been chosen. If they can't, instead you sacrifice it and it deals damage to its equal to its power to target opponent. So, it's kind of like it's one of my favorite things where it's like, what's that like 7 mana, uh, Rakdos enchantment like captive audience or whatever.
Yeah.
This feels like the creature version of that where it's like, hey, um, also like I
Yeah.
like pick your poison. I don't know if like since it's the opponent that's choosing, would as worded would they create 2 treasure tokens, or would you? I think the intent is for you to create 2 treasure tokens, but I don't know if like because they get to choose it, that's not how it works. I would just like check the wording on that, just in case. But yeah, like
Mm.
I like the idea of like this is just, and especially since it has haste, this is just terrifying. Usually you just like give them the card draw, and it's like, oh man, okay, they're already like up a card, so if I try to two for one them, this is not going to go well. Um, and then like you want to delay the double strike counter so you don't like instantly die, but then they also get like ramp. Um, I think it would be interesting if it was like instead of or maybe not. Maybe it's just like better as just like a lightning bolt that like because these are all like fairly high power effects. So I like the idea of like okay, if they manage to like stave him off for 3 turns, he just like poofs into thin air. Um, yeah, it feels like I almost would like this as like Demon Genie or something. I don't know if they print genies anymore, but like the vibe definitely feels very like genie-ish as like a pick your poison. What's wrong? Come on.
Yeah. Do you would you say would a bread of Freeds could they do something equivalent? I'm
That
not
would
sure
also.
if I don't know if Ifrits could stand in place for genies.
I don't think they can, but I
Mm,
also I'm not gonna lie. I'm not like super like well versed in like the lore behind those mythical creatures. So like the
yeah,
definitely something to like as far as I know, the granting wishes thing is primarily a genie thing, and then uh, Ifrits have like a whole different set of things going on. But yeah, I mean,
gotcha.
and this is also like one of the reasons they probably don't print genies anymore, just in case, is because like, or like maybe they still print genies, but like I feel like they don't print them as often. They printed one in Dominaria and stuff, but like there's just a potential for like reinforcing uh, tropes about like mythical creatures that are like maybe not source material accurate but are pop culture accurate. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, whole diatribe about something literally not on the card, but
Right.
yeah. Sorry about
So
that.
this I'm such a fan of extending. Yeah, like you mentioned Captive Audience, which is a series of sadistic choices in black red and like red has the whole like hey you can choose what can happen like for me browbeat style and stuff uh when you combine it with black and red it's like a very damning series of choices and I would like to see more of these kind of designs in the future. I like that the demon flavor is tied with it said dealer so it's like you're just yeah, you're just stuck making this like bad deal with demons. Like you know that they're always got um maybe a loophole to make sure that you're just stuck. You can't get out of this cycle with this demon, whatever the narrative is with your relationship with this demon.
Okay, what is your next card going to be?
Okay, let's go to um mtg.design creepy puppet. Okay, so creepy puppet here has this keyword proposition creep, um, rewarding you for attacking alone. I think that's an interesting proposition for maybe considering for whether that can be a set mechanic or even going to Evergreen, maybe. We've seen Exalted appear in Bant before, but then later in a core set for white and black. And black has had some rewards for um, having just controlling like a single creature or whenever a creature attacks alone. So maybe and then blue is like, hey, I have creatures that just can't be blocked at all. So I wonder if there's creep along the lines of Skulk if it's in blue black. That's like I think that's a nice, very simple, short reminder text approach to this because puppets can be creepy, and that's an aspect that's being touched on for this, and instead of the control part or strings part.
Yeah, and I kind of really love this as like an exploration of like like as you said blue black different ways to do evasion. Um, because like it feels like Exalted is a very like green white effect primarily, right? It's in banned shards, but it's primarily green white. So like it feels interesting to see like similar design space, but like converted into blue black. Um, like
Mm.
it, I think like I love that type of stuff where it's like an inversion of flavor or of like colors, um, with a slight tweak on what the mechanic does. I also think that like yeah, there's a bunch of like I forget the name of the card. What is the Innistrad card where it's like um, as long as you control one creature, it gets like +3/+3 in menace or something crazy like that. Um,
Yeah. Yes, yes. That's homicidal seclusion, I believe.
yeah, like I think that's like that seems like an interesting way to like bring back stuff like that and like make a unique archetype. Um, I I think it would probably need to lean heavily on other uh, archetypes and stuff. But what I like about it is that unlike in a similar vein to Exalted, but unlike like or equipment based Voltron style stuff, if a creature has creep, like I think it would be cool if like most creep creatures they also had like whenever a creature attacks alone and gets this bonus. So like you can like creep it, and then later it like helps buff your biggest creepers, and then you
Mm,
can essentially like
okay.
have this encouragement to like uh attack a. You don't feel about bad about curving out with them. Here specifically, I also like the untap it clause because it feels very much like you attack them and hit them, and then you turn around and like it's like you feel someone poke you in the side and you're like hey, and you turn around and it's like I don't know I didn't do anything, I'm just a puppet. So yeah, this just feels like a fantastic like proof of concept for like creep.
Yeah. The death touch here is good, with the let's say you do wanna swing out and you feel like your creature is not like you're just if didn't have death touch, it'd just be a 1/2, and you're stuck with blocking it. That kinda sucks. But having death touch there, you're like, "Okay, cool. At least now if I swing with 3 creatures, it's still a good creature."
Yeah, and it's also like because it untaps, it's better on blocks, right? So
So scary. Yep. It's a very scary puppet.
okay. Next up, let's go to the MSC file. I'm gonna do Starstrung Marionette. So do. Starstrung Marionette, designed by let's pull over here, Garduu, Garduu. So this uses the classic bestow mechanic. Um, on its own, 3/3 for one white, but it can attack or block alone. So classic white text we've seen it on like Loyal Pegasus and the like. It's also like sometimes on red creatures, but there to encourage you to swarm out and do some cool stuff. Here we have the interesting thing of an off-color bestow, where you can use it as like a removal spell on opposing creatures if you also have black. And I like the idea of like I love like off-color cost as a way to like make commons and uncommons playable in a single deck, but more attractive to specific archetypes. So I could totally see this being like flexible if you have like white red go wide, um, and then like white green constellation, but then you have like a white black bestow archetype, and this is best in that. So it's like flexible. But yeah, this just feels like a great uncommon. It's flexible, powerful, and tells you a lot about what the set's doing. And hey, it has a quote from Perisophia the philosopher, who, as far as I know, is a canon Theros character. So definitely fits the bestow flavor.
You bring up a great point about the how this could be a mono white creature for your deck for red white strategy definitely. So that's very cool that there's different layers that you can go with for this, and that clever one white and black in the bestow just like puts a very non-difficult, what do you call it, extra non-difficult to like work with, extra dimension to the card for certain archetypes. That's some good limited design here. Oh, also the can't attack or block alone just all by itself. That that's like there is no artifact creature currently, I believe, that has that text. And like you said, it's usually white and red creatures. It would be cool to just see it on artifact creature. It just has that text at all, and it just says it's a puppet.
Yeah, And I like that. I like how you get more value for black, but I could also see like what I like about this is like you don't feel bad about playing this as removal because you can also have situations where they have like one bomb out, and giving it the can't attack or block alone text actually is like fairly relevant. It's not just like a one white black Myers Grasp or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm surprised there are no artifact can't attack or block alone creatures. I feel like that's definitely something we should see at some point.
Yep. Start the count. Start the timer or whatever. A number of
Isn't
days.
there? I thought there was like maybe it's not maybe it's a can't attack alone. I thought there was like a 2/1 artifact creature from like Origins or something. I
Oh,
call it as flavored.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's see here. I did a quick Scryfall search to only for the can't attack or block alone, but here we go, and you might be right. Yes, a bonded construct can't attack alone. Yeah, okay, so we got one half of the equation here.
Yeah, yeah.
So two
Now we just need
designs left
like
to
the
do.
upgraded version. The
Yeah, can't attack or block alone, and then another one that says can't block alone.
mhm. Okay, what is your next card gonna be?
Okay, let's do MSC file, and let's go with Pinocchio Vampire Slayer. All right, so I don't consume this content, but I have seen some extra context from Ian in the Discord, and also I think from Wobbles about where this is from, and this is from the something called Pinocchio the Vampire Slayer, where the flavor is that this doll or person, maybe however it is, lies so that they can grow their nose, then break off their nose to make a wooden stake, and then slay vampires with it. Which is a really funny thing. So I think that's represent. So with that in mind, I think that's represented well here when you're trying to um, name cards off the top. If you want to have wooden stakes, you need to not name the card on top. So don't name if you're playing a mono red deck with this. Don't name mountain, probably. Otherwise, you might hit mountain and tell the truth and put it into your hand. Yeah, so that was a cool. I think that was a clever execution there with trying to play a game off the top and matching the card names. And I think the flavor match here with the source material is pretty funny and clever to do when you're doing a wooden stake. Shout out to Conjuring usage here. It's
Yeah,
something that
is
is.
Wooden Stake a cannon card? I'm assuming it is for this
It
purpose.
is, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
a +1/+0 equipment, but also if it blocks or becomes blocked by a vampire, you destroy that creature. It can be regenerated.
Okay, that's super cool. Yeah, and I love like again for digital spaces using this conjure text. Um, it's like it's super clean for just like getting existing cards without having to write out the entire text and like or like needing them to be in your deck or whatever. So yeah, like I love this. I love like the mini game here. I love the aggressive bent and I love the flavor. It is incredibly silly and I don't think I've ever had like there's been like magic cards I've seen where I'm like, "Hey, I recognize that IP." But I don't think there's ever been a custom magic card where I've been like, "Wow, I need to go check this IP out." So, definitely kudos on that.
It's that guerrilla marketing happening here. It's
Hmm.
appearing in your custom magic videos near you.
But yeah, I guess speaking of Pinocchio, we can go to Deceitful Puppet in the MSC file. Designed by Jayhew. It's 3 for a common 2/2. Whenever it becomes tapped, reveal the top card of your library. If that card doesn't share a name with any cards in your graveyard, you put a +1/+1 counter, or I guess it says put +1/+1, but I'm assuming it's supposed to be a counter on Deceitful Puppet and mill a card. Otherwise, mill a card. So essentially, um, if you try to mill the same card, they'll be like, "Hey, we're not falling for that." But if it is something new, they're like, "Oh, Deceitful Puppet, that is a new thread." I'm loving this as like an idea of like a variation on Pinocchio. The lore is like, "Oh no, the sheep got carried away by a flood." "Oh my god, really?" "Watch out, the
Mm.
mountains are erupting. The sheep are caught in the lava." And then One day he tries the same lie one too many times. They're like, Pinocchio, didn't you just tell us 2 days ago that it was flooding? And then he's like, they
Yeah.
But yeah, incredibly silly. And again, I love functional commons for Moxtober Cube. And I think this encourages it's one of those things where you're likely to mill a basic land, but also essentially I, unless you're otherwise have strong milling, the first card you mill is probably just going to turn Deceitful Puppet on, at which point it's a 3/3 for 3 in colorless, which is just a good aggressive rate. You curve out with that and you don't feel bad about yourself. And then any more that it grows is just gravy. Obviously having to tap it, uh, presumably by attacking, um, means that there's more interaction points slash chances for them to kill it in blocks before it grows. But yeah, it's still a really solid and powerful card for common while still having a reasonable downside. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this. Shout out to Jayhew.
I I love that you have to make it become tap, yes, usually by attacking, which means there's this tension of okay, all right, there might be moments I want to attack, and either I'm going to have something that can't be blocked without them chump blocking it, or we're going to trade. Or if you're feeling extra daring, I hope to hit correctly and get a puzzle counter just so I can trade. So that's really exciting to force you to commit to, and then hope when you mill. It's also cool that I when I play this artifact creature, it requires generic, right? It rewards 5 color decks. If you ever dare to go 5 color unlimited, probably not, but 3 color decks. You could still play this as a card on curve in your myriad of colors in your curve. This both rewards you because you're like mill plains, then later you mill a mountain. They don't share the same name. Great, that's awesome.
Okay, what is your next design going to be?
Okay, let's do pull the strings in the MSE file.
Oh my god, I literally
Okay.
had this lined up as my next card too. Let's go.
Hey, we're doing it. Yeah. Hey, and actually we started out this the very first card you mentioned was on my list too. So we're going back and forth here. All right. So pull the strings. This one has a couple things that we've seen before. Well, the second option blocks this turn of Fable. We've seen that before in red. Recently we've seen it in Strixhaven. Um, with forcing a creature to duel, you may have it gain reach and stuff. For the first one, though, it's like a more specific goad, and one I was able to find that existed before in Magic is on Dulcet Sirens, which has a tap ability: target creature attacks target opponent this turn if Fable. Uh, I'm not sure if there's any other card. Maybe there is. I just have to do the right search. But I think it's really cool to go and have such a simple pairing of effects on here that can work for both when you want to attack and both when you don't want to be attacked.
Yeah, I love this. Honestly, if there's any change I would make, it would just be choose one or more. So in multiplayer, this goes kind of ham. Um, I love that kind of
Oh,
thing where it's in single player, it'll have the exact same effect. In multiplayer, you can cause real havoc with it. It can be what's that 5 mana? It was in Ikoria and also where two target creatures fight each other.
Clash of the Titans.
Clash of the Titans. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it feels like a real funny way of gotchaing some people as a potential to do that, but obviously it can't be creatures that the same player controls, so it's a lot more balanced for multiplayer. But yeah, this is just I don't know, this feels like the type of red effect which we should have gotten already. It's just so simple and effective.
Mm.
um
Perfect comparison with Clash of the Titans. That's yeah, that's great. I for your suggestion, I want to see that happen because it's choose one or more is just a very easy addition to enhance its likelihood to get played in Commander because Commander already has like a higher level of power, so a lot of these limited effects just don't make the cut. But it'd be cool to do choose one or more, and Clash of the Titans is a great comparison for what how you can kill two creatures with one spell. But in this case, you're doing it a little differently. And you have two hands, right? One hand puppeting the one creature, and the other hand puppeting the other creature.
So true. Okay. So for my next card, we're gonna go to where is this? Oops. Oh no, I lost the name. Oh yeah, here we go. Mischievous Geist from the MSC file. Um, so this is MBTree's second card today, so good on them. Um, but it's very simple. It's a 1/1 blue flyer, and when it dies, you can make a non-creature artifact into a 0/0 artifact with flying, and then put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it's as though when it dies, it instead goes to possess something and take control of it. Um, Again, I think that it's like making one drops relevant and limited is hard. This feels like it does it with the plomb by having an effect that is usually either green, white, or black. The idea of like on death, make a token, like the Doomed Traveler style thing. Except since they're both flyers, it's a lot more impactful, and it has a unique blue leaning twist in that you don't just get the token or the extra copy of itself for free. Um, yeah, and like again, like this could be cool with like obviously with vehicles, it's probably oh I guess with vehicles it sets the power and toughness, so it does. So that's totally not a non-issue. Um, but yeah, you can definitely like if there are artifacts which have like different abilities and stuff, you can maybe do cool stuff there. But the main thing is just like how do I make Doomed Traveler in blue, and this is a cool way that you can do that. So, and of course, got to throw in my catchphrase mechanics is flavor. So, this has a monopoly on that. So, shout out to MBTRee for this design.
I like that this encourages me to make sure to build a deck or draft a deck in that has artifacts that are early because you only get one chance to enchant something, and it's not just any like a lot of sets have artifact creatures, so it's very easy to get your bronze sable on turn two. In this case, it asks you to be a little more creative. Maybe you draft that manolith a little higher than you would have not normally have drafted it. Or maybe you have an environment that has clue tokens or treasures and stuff, and you're like, I'll value those a little more so that when my mischievous geist dies on maybe turn four or something like that, I can still keep up. I still can get this reward.
Yeah, for sure. And I wonder if removing the flying on the base mode would make it more likely to die into a flyer and be interesting. I don't know if that's like a those are like knobs that
Oh,
could be tweaked, but I think that like that could be an interesting uh, thing to do. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, okay. What is your next design going to be?
Okay. Let's do in the mtg.design file. We got yeah, however you want to pronounce this, Ocipincho or Ocipinco. Uh, a scrambling of Pinocchio for the astute-eyed. So this creature takes both concepts together of there's the popular Pinocchio story of the puppet becomes the human, right? But then there's like the maybe you found in more horror type of stuff. I'm reminded of the Jonathan Colton song with Creepy Doll, and you'd find out the doll is you. This is the other way around as well. And you have humans that become puppets. And this being a legendary creature, it makes me want to make a commander deck that is full of specifically humans and artifacts. I appreciate as well, or artifact creatures. I appreciate as well that there's specifically also a lack of green and white, so that you play a humans deck that doesn't have those colors, which usually has a lot of strong humans. I guess thanks to Innistrad, and also humans tend to be in white.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Like, I love the idea of like flip flopping between human and construct, and just like the general aristocraty feel. Uh, Marrying humans and artifact creatures is, I don't think, like a kind of tribe or whatever that's been done before. Mostly because humans is a broad enough tribe on its own usually, but I think that like in a controlled environment, this does some pretty cool stuff. Um, yeah, like I don't know that I have much more to say. It's just a really solid translation of
Mm.
as of mechanics as flavor, and also while also being like really functional and powerful.
Well, another point I just remembered to or realized here is that I like that there is the first ability here of dealing damage whenever there's the death, because um, that pushes the game forward to towards an end. It feels like if you just had without that, you can end up in this loop of just finagling around with creatures being sacrificed. At least here, it's like, okay, eventually things have to die. Either you get interrupted or you win, and because you did this enough times.
For sure. And yeah, speaking of commander type creatures that slowly drain your opponents of life and win the game that way, let's go to the MSC file. Marry Annette, but gift maker, designed by Jayhew. So you tap her to create a doll artifact token. At the beginning of your end step, you lose one life, and then you can pay one in a red to essentially throw the doll at the next person to turn order. So we talked about hot potato style stuff here. This is definitely one of them. You you just like start throwing artifacts around the board, and they're like, ah, no, you take it. No, you take it. And I think that this is secretly, it says lose life. The secret text on this is it actually says, uh, it essentially says you lose life until you have like mana to pay for it, and then it becomes like a taxing thing.
Mm.
Because it does like a very good job of just like forcing them to like, oh man, okay, I've got to tap out for this, otherwise I'm going to be losing a lot of life. Um, Also, I appreciate a design that makes me actually like Tubrid. Tubrid is usually, I feel like, either used incorrectly or used just like it's used by designers, especially on like the subreddit, because it isn't used often, and so they're like, ah, this is unique TM, without realizing why it isn't used often. And this is a really good way of doing it because it creates this asymmetry of like, hey, when I activated this, it's 1 mana cheaper, so I'm actually going up in tempo, while my opponents are all having to pay more. So that's a again, it's a really hard to find a good use for, or not, maybe not really hard, but I feel like it's not something that's typically done well. So I really appreciate the use of hybrid mana, two-bird mana here specifically.
Yeah, that that is an elegant genius move there, because it would not be very fun to have your the mono blue and mono green opponents to not be able to activate it at all if it was just uh one in a red. But it also like, oh man, but also doing, yeah, just generic at all means you're trying to keep up with them when mana resources. So good to just reward you. It tilts it in your favor, but opens it up for them. That's awesome. I want to build a deck around this.
Yeah, you know what would actually be fun is if at the end of the month, or maybe give it a little bit so that everyone can have a breather after the end of Moxtober. But like if we can get enough interested people, just like make a bunch of commander decks with some of the legendary creatures submitted and try to use as many Moxtober cards as we can. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And then just like throw it into an XML and then just do like a commander game night or something. So yeah, I don't know if anyone watching would be interested in like participating in something like that. Just like throw a comment and maybe we'll host something in like mid or late November.
You know, as you were mentioning that, I was thinking in my head, oh man, I'm so totally putting Freed from the Real on Marionette when I realized, oh, it's mono red. It's not so easy to untap it because it doesn't have blue in its color. Well
Mm-hmm.
done.
I think one
If
thing
that
that
was
could be like really silly is if just to like get a bunch of dolls on the board is you play a bunch of active treason effects on your own creatures, specifically Marionette, where because it has the untap, so you're just like, okay, I'll untap Marionette, make some more, untap Marionette, make some more. It's not very like cost efficient, but I think the thing with Marionette is that the tap thing is like a deceptively strong like limiter, because like once you have like a few dolls going around the board,
Mm,
someone's getting drained out quickly. Um,
that's hilarious. It's
mm.
like, how dare it's treasonous to make so many dolls. What are you doing?
And it's also on flavor because she's like making gifts, and it's like, but actually it's like backstabbing. So
Yeah, very cool.
okay, what is your next card gonna be?
Okay, MSE file, rooted Colossus. All right, so there's a bundle of cards that have the concept of piloting. Think I've seen piloting as a concept in custom Magic in other sets, or maybe this is from the same set. I've seen it before. Have you, Caillou? Can you speak to the concept of piloting?
I've never seen this before. The only place I've seen pilots is like in Metropolis. There's a pilot creature type which is just used to like it's used as like a marker word as like uh there's like a pilots and vehicles archetype. And so and
Mm,
then the pilots are basically just like, hey, uh I have extra effects that care about when I'm crewing a vehicle, essentially. Uh, but yeah, nothing like this. This is totally new to me.
gotcha. And maybe it's because also I know I think Juliet was maybe in a project with some other like Goblin Artisans crew with that had a mecha theme there. But yeah, choosing the puppet theme and going, oh, you know what? Gundams or other vehicles that you can pilot. That's a way of puppeting a thing. And so I appreciated that direction. A lot of these have just been on like little toys and dolls or like magic, mind control, or like governmental hierarchy stuff of controlling people with bribery and all that. This is a very unique direction for puppet. That's awesome. I like that you can be able to get into giant creatures. I'm trying to think of all the differences between vehicles and piloting. One is that you're marrying the abilities with this, so you have to try to get creative with what ability you would want. Like if there's a creature that has an activated ability that rewards you for like toughness or maybe deals damage equal to toughness, I would want to do that. Maybe although it gets plus 8 plus 0 when it's
Yeah,
piloted,
so you
so
could just give it lifelink and go to town.
there you
Um,
go. Lifelink. Yeah, you're right.
yeah,
you
but yeah, I
I
like
guess
that
it's
there's
very
like
easy to do.
it's like
Yeah.
so similar to like crewing, but like because the gaining abilities part of like the merging is like so relevant as well. So like
Mm.
yeah, like it feels like taking something familiar and then justifying differentiating it. And yeah, I really agree with what you said about go big. Um, Going big instead of going small is like a really interesting twist on the concept. Um, I kind of like balance wise, I almost wish this didn't have trample itself because I think that it's a little self solving to just be like, hey, I'm a 6 mana 8/8 trample at common. All you need is a 4 power creature to like really go ham. Which maybe not too self solving, but I think it's like it's a lot more. I think piloting is a lot more interesting when you like when lots of the power comes from like marrying good creatures with good abilities to like larger beat sticks. So yeah, I would consider
Yeah, I
like
agree
Moon.
with you. Yeah, take
Also,
off trample. Awesome.
yeah, also I was thinking, as you were talking, one thing that reminded me, there's a mechanic called Mount from the set Strombo's Grand Banquet, which was made by Canterbury Egg as the that was the uh, whole set made in Moxtober for last year. So that might have been one of the things that it was like it was a very similar thing except like um, you paid a mana cost instead of doing like a crewing thing, but it still used like the merge technology. So yeah, that might be one of the mechanics in addition to whatever the Goblin Artisans people were doing, which now I know I need to go check out. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, so shout out to C2H6 for this design. Um, And now we are going into the last round. Um, let me look through. I'm actually not quite sure what I want as my last card. Huh. Well, okay.
Shall I go
I
with mine? Or
Oh
you
wait,
got one?
I have one. I have one.
All right.
And this is mostly just because I find this incredibly hilarious. It's going to be Ravenous Elmo from the MSC file. Um,
Oh.
Designed by Wobbles. It's 3 red. It attacks each turn if able, and if a source would deal 3 or less damage to Ravenous Elmo, prevent the damage. And I was like, at first I read that, I'm like, how does that fit in? And then I read the flavor text. He, that tickles because it's like tickle me Elmo. Oh, like this, and I love arts like or like I love cards like this because it makes me want. I'm like, who is Hector? I need to look up this artist. This is like terrifying and hilarious at the same time. Um, and this definitely feels like
Mm.
something I would do where I would just like I don't know if like Wobbles had the concept first or if like they'd been sitting on the art for a while, but I definitely have like a folder full of like I found this art and it's hilarious and I don't know how I want to make it into a card, but I do at some point. And I think that taking a character who is a puppet as like the thing for puppet is pretty cool. I kind of was wondering if we would get like more of those, but yeah, like mechanically,
Yeah.
I don't think there's like crazy amount going on here in terms of like just appreciation for the card as like just like an art piece or I guess something I'm looking at and appreciating. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. This is cute and in like every way.
Yeah. Uh, it's so funny that it's a tickle me Elmo is a cultural, such a cultural thing for a lot of people now that there's enough people that can get it with the prevent damage part. And we've seen some prevent before as well. They're just really tough creatures that can take a lot of little like punches from multiple blockers. That doesn't work. That's cool. Yeah, I think it's a serviceable, limited, strong top of card card.
Okay, and with that, hit us with our last card for the day.
Let's see here. I went with let's do the Bunraku Master in the mtg.design and also MSC file. Okay, so we've seen a bunch of um cards that have made in like commander products that would allow you to delve and then you do things with the delve stuff. So this is another one of those uh concepts. And in this case, you get to go and maybe like make puppets of creatures that did exist before. So I thought that was like kind of a cool, like, oh hey, here is this creature you've seen before, but now we're like doing telling a story about these creatures that have come before. Of course, in this case, they're deadly. They'll actually hit you.
Yeah, and I love this idea of like delve and here not really being like a cost reduction mechanic, but as a way to like get stuff into exile to use with the ability. Because we've seen that as well to like some degree. Um, but usually I feel like those are like capped costs or like there's like it's still like cost reduction in some way. While this one is just like yeah, cool. They you can play me as like a 2/2 like a 2 mana 0/3 defender if you want, but the real sauce is just like getting back your entire legion of creatures as puppets. And yeah, this is definitely like something which I know I've definitely seen a bunch of in like Eastern media, yeah, not just like not just like Southeast Asia with Japan and Korean media, but also in like Indian media. But I feel like I don't see like the kind of trope as like of like coming back as puppets as much in like Western media. So I think that's kind of I think that was like a definite like cool nod here. Um, there's like a
Mm.
little bit of it in like Lorwyn and stuff because I know there's the I forget there's like a
Oh,
reanimation spell that does this
puppeteer click.
puppeteer click, yeah. But
Yeah.
in general, yeah, they
In
and
this case, I think it was like if you look at the construct part, and they yeah, it feels like they were making puppets out of who came before rather than using their bodies. But maybe that's what you meant as well. At least in my mind,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
that's
just like
actually like
I feel
actually
like
taking.
yeah, also like in like lots of Western media, it's like actually just puppeting them, whereas I feel like in lots of Eastern media, it's like kind of just like they actually like become wooden puppets, kind of thing.
Oh gosh, yeah, okay, that's cool, awesome. Um, oh, great point about the X part. That is a subtle difference here with I've looked up here previous Delve ones that care about Delve is like Murktide Regent from Modern Horizons 2. Like you get a exponential reward here for you can delve up to 5 instants and sorceries. It costs 2, and you have a lot of instants and sorceries that you were able to delve away. But if you didn't do any, you get like the worst of both worlds. Whereas in this case, you actually have more of a linear reward here. You can actually just pay 1 and 2 black, and you got something. But if you, it costs more to get more, and that's a cool difference from previous ones.
Okay, and with that, that's the end of today's show. Once again, thanks Bradley for coming on. And I didn't get to do this properly at the start of the show, but thanks to Mark Confidant for hosting yesterday. Um, I was definitely getting a little tired from hosting every day, so having a break day was good. And now I've been back, ready and energized for today's show. Um, so yeah, and shout out to Ancestral and Cajun for setting up the systems of submission, without which we wouldn't be able to like do this at all. So if you're interested in knowing how you can get your cards into the mtg.design or MSC files, or you just want to see the full files that all the designs that we discussed today came from, you can find all that in the description. But until then, uh, this has been Bradley Rose and Caillou signing off. We'll see you tomorrow.